Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today I want to talk about a show that ruled the early 90s in terms of music on cable. And this was, of course, MTV Unplugged, which had rather inconspicuous beginnings in late 1989, but quickly caught fire because people loved it. Now, what is MTV Unplugged? What is the whole unplugged idea? Well, um, at the time, I thought it was kind of a gimmick and kind of a stupid one at that, because whether an artist wants to plug in or not plug in, should be up to the artist and not to a cable channel. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But let's talk about what the what the idea was behind it. So, this began in 1989. Now, what was music like in 1989? It was very plugged in, whether it was synthesizers, whether it was, highly processed guitars with loads of effects, whether it was Simmons electronic drums or regular drums but recorded with gated reverb that made them sound a bit like electronic drums. So the sounds that we were hearing in terms of popular music in 1989 were very much reliant on technology and electricity. And so the idea was to do something completely different a la Monty Python and say, right, in an age where everything is more plugged in than ever before, let's see what it would be like just with some acoustic guitars, acoustic piano, real drums without any effects, and just see how it goes. And of course, on some of these shows, there were some things plugged in. It would typically be a bass. You wouldn't see an acoustic bass guitar or an upright contrabasso, but it was certainly less plugged in than other stuff. And just to give you some of the names of some of the acts that we saw in the early days of this show, we saw 10,000 Maniacs. Their performance was very popular. Joe Walsh, Dr. John, Stevie Ray Vaughan, very late before he would die, sadly. Joe Satriani was there. Don Henley did one. Crowded House did one. Hall and Oates, Aerosmith, Elton John, Crosby, Stills and Nash without Young. The Allman Brothers, Poison was still around. Paul McCartney did one. REM did one. Sting did one. Oh boy, I got stung there. Elvis Costello did one. Mariah Carey did one. Joe Cocker did one. John Mellencamp, Neil Young, Nirvana, and Eric Clapton, who released his very big selling album, Eric Clapton Unplugged. Neil Young's performance was very well thought of. Duran Duran's was thought of very well because not many people are used to them being unplugged. And so as you go on through the 90s, more and more bands, both legacy acts and current acts. So in 1996, you had Hootie and the Blowfish, Tori Amos, Alice in Chains, and Oasis, all very much of the time. And in the early 2000s, the show sort of took a gradual break. Then it came back, but it was really this sort of early to mid 90s period that the show had its heyday. So, what made it successful? Well, it turns out that people want to hear musicians play. And I think, and they want to hear and see them play live. And on that simple promise, this show absolutely delivered. The fact that there were no sort of hosts jumping up and down, no videographic special effects, the fact that they kept it simple. Here's a studio, here's an audience, here are the cameras and microphones, let's go. I think it was the simplicity and the straightforwardness that made it work. Why this couldn't be done with artists plugging in remains, I think, is a bit of a lost opportunity because songs that were intended to be plugged in, not always, but usually sound better played in their native format, if you will. So that remains my gripe with the show. But it did show that even in an age where people were saying then what they're saying now, oh, people have short attention spans, people blah, blah, blah. They only watch it if there's a fun and crazy video with supermodels and explosions going on. No, it showed that people will, if the music is good, sit back, relax, and watch a concert without the frills. It was true then when people said it wouldn't be true. I think it would still be true today. In fact, the popularity of even amateur concert videos, so by the amateur, I mean just a guy with his phone holding it up to the stage and people watching it on YouTube, it proves this is even more true today than it was then. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.